man on fire.
Hello humans, welcome back to the Slackline Quote of the Day broadcast. You are here with the boss.
The boss is coming!
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you.
It is Monday, January 22nd, and we are coming at you from Vancouver, BC. Another cloudy day here, just the way it normally is, but I find by the time I say that, most of the time I get outside and walk Boris around, and it is way nicer than it was when I actually recorded. So usually my weather reports are a little bit off, but that's what happens when you're a few hours behind. So yeah, we are here talking quotes, anything that I read, pick up, whatever. I take a look online if I haven't heard anything that's sparked my interest yet. Who is bringing us here today? Greg, what is our sponsor today? Sponsor today is Growable Gods. Just place in water, watch it grow, and then worship on your knees. That is Growable Gods Water Watch Worship. Those are basically, I guess, like those old dinosaurs or something that you'd put in the sink, and they swell up a little bit like a sponge. But these become workable deities that will bring you plagues, and you can sacrifice animals and other living things too, and whatnot. So that is Growable Gods. They are our sponsor today, and they are bringing us a quote from French author and satirist Voltaire. If God didn't exist, it would be necessary to invent him. That is our quote from Voltaire, again a French author and satirist. And this quote is actually often used as kind of a little as kind of a quip against religion, to show like the sort of silliness of religion, or that God has been invented. That is kind of how its use is widespread now, but in its context, Voltaire is actually arguing like against atheism and for the idea of a God, as kind of, I think, a necessary uniting force of people, and that maybe that we would have to create them in some way, shape, or form all the way along the line to have like a universal system of law, basically, right? So, I mean, the first thing we did was make gods. As soon as we became intelligent enough to start thinking about what our world was and where it came from, we started to create, things that explained what was going on around us, like why the sun was moving, why the moon would replace it, where would they go, floods, natural disasters, why were they happening, did we cause it, even like up to the origin of the cosmos. For as long as those types of questions and things have happened, and we've been intelligent enough to question why, we have created gods. And all these like cultures connected and clashed and grew together. These pagan religions had like these sweeping similarities, and so some determined that there must be like something above that. There must be that this is just the natural order of Earth. But what created Earth and what controls these forces? And so some people decided that must be a single Lord, that created all the heavens and everything, and us, and boom, so that's monotheism, right? And we're still kind of in that space today. Not kind of, we're still very much in that space today. Even though we're moving into a new space where we've used, science and reason to discover a lot of things that, to explain these, to explain like the natural world, as best we can, to a pretty high level. And so we're kind of at this, crux of change of ideas, kind of like between, Roman gods and Christianity and Constantine and all that type of stuff. We're in between monotheistic gods and getting into science and explaining the world in that way. But even within that, there's still mysteries, obviously, right? There's, dark energy, dark matter, even like gravity we didn't really have a way to explain until recently. And, even questions beyond that, when you talk about the origins of the Big Bang, some people think there's like theories that it quote unquote doesn't matter what happened before the Big Bang because all of our rules and everything is born out of that singularity. But I mean, what was before it? We don't know that, and we'll probably never be able to find that out. And so even that, if you really want an answer to that, or need an answer to that for some reason, people will make up a god or continue to use the ones that we have. But not just about like explaining our natural world. It's all about like social order and stuff too. And that I think that's where Voltaire was actually coming from with it, was more from a they needed a law to unite under as cultures came together, right? When you had the pagan gods, the Roman gods, the Greek gods and stuff, they were a form of law, right? Like you didn't want to anger the gods, you didn't do anything to anger the gods. All of the law of order between, masters and parents and slaves and all that type of stuff, and teachers and students, like it was all kind of a rule of the gods, and all based on, old scriptures and ideas of what angered them and what didn't. And then again move into monotheism. It's a way to try and unite a morality across the whole known world, right? Like, and everybody is kind of still battling for whose law and whose word that morality should fall under. That's cause of most of the problems of the last 1,000 years of human history has just been battling over whose God is right and whose law we should follow. And it's still kind of happening today. It obviously is still happening today, but there's this violent clash of religions happening still. And then there's this floating non-violent reformation of thought towards science and how that should influence our law and morality, as we find out about biology and the differences and similarities between people and what is caused by genetics and that type of thing. That influences the way that we write laws. It influences what we fight for now. At least in the Western world, quote unquote Western world, there's not a lot of fighting for religious freedom as much as there is just personal freedom and basic rights of being able to go about your life as you wish, which is kind of a different sort of idea than any sort of monotheism brings to the table, because most monotheism brings a set of a set of rules handed down by a higher being, and you just don't break those rules because the higher being is the higher being, and it knows better than you. And there's still a lot of people that believe that, and so if you do believe that, then you can fall into a kind of a trap of logic of just attributing every good and bad thing to the Lord, and never taking responsibility as a person or as a society, if that is the prevailing thought process for anything, because it's just well, it's God's plan or whatever. That kind of digression can happen on the other side too, where people think that the universe is chaos, and so nothing matters, and so nothing matters, and I can treat people however I choose and do whatever I choose, and basically kind of live by your own sort of individual moral code, which I don't know is true or not. Like, some people think that our morals have grown out of religion and out of, specifically, at least in the Western world, out of Christianity. And even though we don't necessarily adhere to them as like the Ten Commandments and that type of thing today, they have all kind of like, our morality is all evolved from that. I would argue differently, because that itself was part of our evolution of morality, so it must have been innate in us to write down the ideas that you shouldn't kill and that you shouldn't steal and all that type of thing. And because again, those tales of morality existed in religions long before Christianity or Judaism or Islam or any of those things. And then again, even before ancient religions, right? Because again, those stories were written down by people who obviously intended those lessons to be taken from them. So they must have had those like innate moralities, like the guilt you feel when you see somebody getting hurt from when they shouldn't be, or something like that. Like, that's not I don't think that's born out of like a built-in social order. I think that's born out of just an innate sort of connectedness to people, as like a human to human, and a sympathy that you feel for other people. I think we see that in other animals all over the place too, trying to care for injured young and injured companions and that type of thing. So yeah, bringing that back to the quote, like, what is the God that we've invented to now control or to guide our morality? Part of me would argue that it's money, and increasingly so as we bring money into politics and allow large sums of money to influence not just business tactics, but human decisions, like basic human rights and all that type of thing, which is, it's nothing new. It's been happening all the time since money was a thing. But as far as what we currently worship, I would argue that it's that, because we're all in pursuit of that. Like, if people do something, if people leave a business partnership, or if people break a friendship or a relationship or anything, for money, I wouldn't say it's looked at as okay necessarily, but it's kind of one of the more acceptable reasons. I don't know, maybe that's not necessarily true, but it's my wandering thought, so here it is on record. But yeah, well, I think you see it in like just the idea that that the profit of an industry or the growing of an economy of a nation, whatever measure you're using, a lot of it's usually measured by GDP, which is money, and so a lot of people argue that the growth of those things is more important or a better track of progress than the growth of people's health or the growth of people's happiness or whatever you want to do. Yeah, that is where our faith lies, right? It lies in that it lies in this idea that our pursuit of our new and interesting things will give us a good life and give everybody a good life in that way. It's the whole sort of basis of the market system in which all this stuff works. So, but yeah, I can definitely get on a big digression about that. So maybe we'll leave it there for today. That quote again is, if God didn't exist, it would be necessary to invent him. That is Voltaire, whose real name en français was François-Marie Arouet. I probably brutalized that pronunciation, but his nom de plume or pseudonym was Voltaire, and so that quote again, if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. And that is brought to us again today by Growable Gods. Just place in water and watch it grow, and worship on your knees. Water, watch, worship. Those are growable gods. Just like those old dinos you'd throw in the sink, they grow into fully formed deities that will ask for human sacrifice and all that fun stuff. So, buyer beware with growable gods. That is it for the Slackline quote of the day. We will be back tomorrow. The sun is just coming out again, so my weather report is already wrong. We will be back tomorrow with another quote. Thanks again to anybody that's listening. Follow the Slackline on Instagram at the.slack.line, on Twitter at slackline_radio, YouTube at the Slackline podcast. You can find it on iTunes as well. You have been listening to The Boss.
The boss is coming!
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you
Thanks very much to Crooked Spies for providing the music today. And hope everybody has a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The water it creeps and I'm beginning to weep for all of my kin. The water it creeps, yeah, it's getting so deep, it's over my head. Oh, high tide is when I ride top.